All right, Derbyites, welcome to our viewing panel for the Best TV Miniseries of 2013-2014. The Emmy nominees, there are 6 of them. I believe there's only supposed to be 5, but there was a tie this year, so that's why we have 6. Whereas TV movie, there was only 5 over there. So I'm gonna give you the order of what Gold Derby is predicting: the experts, editors, users, and the top 24 users from last year. So this is who all of you guys think combined will win. And in first place, it's Fargo. Second place, American Horror Story Coven. Third place is Luther. Fourth place is The White Queen. Fifth place is Treme. And sixth place is Bonnie and Clyde. Riley, do you kind of agree with this order, or where do you defer here?
Yeah, the only one I had different was I had Treme moved up a couple spots to third.
Okay. So you have Fargo, Coven, and then Treme. And then Daniel.
Yeah, I also disagree a bit with the order, even though once you get past the top 2, the order might not be all that relevant anyway. It's like you're battling to be the second loser at that point. But I've got Fargo in first place, American Horror Story Coven in second place. I also have Treme in third place. I've got Luther in fourth. I've got Bonnie and Clyde in fifth, and I've got The White Queen in sixth.
And my order is very similar. I have Fargo in first, and then Coven in second, and then I have Treme. And by the way, I feel like Treme was kind of a shock here, but I think Daniel, you predicted it, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then I have fourth.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have fourth place, The White Queen. Fifth place, Luther. Sixth is Bonnie and Clyde. I think back when I was making my predictions, I think I had Dancing on the Edge in my predictions, but that ended up getting snubbed in a lot of places that we thought it would get nominated in. And then we have, Fargo and Coven getting more nominations than people predicted. Coven actually got 17 this year. For the third year in a row, it's 17. And then Fargo got one more, right? It got 18. So if this is the battle, Fargo versus Coven, they're both on FX. So FX is going to have a good year no matter what. Riley, what are your thoughts on Fargo versus Coven?
I'd say Fargo pretty easily. It's just because it's more acclaimed. American Horror Story, it's been on a while. They haven't, awarded it in really anywhere. It is surprising, though, that it got its first writing and directing nominations this year. I was not expecting those. Fargo also got a lot of double nominees in kind of key categories. Let's say it got double directing. It got, did it get triple editing or double? I don't know.
And Daniel, what about you? Fargo versus Coven?
I agree. It's a pretty, not a slam dunk necessarily, but I think it's a pretty safe bet to say Fargo has this. American Horror Story might be considered more of a contender since it did get those writing and directing nominations, but I think we've seen in past years it's lost categories that it probably should have won. We talked over and over again about Sarah Paulson losing last year. They've only won twice in any of the years. They won twice in season 1, twice in season 2, out of all 17 nominations each time. So they're not beloved in that way, and I'm not sure voters really take it seriously. I think it's the kind of show that they'll nominate because they're all watching it. It's popular. It's a hit, so it sort of gets in by default because it has more TV Academy eyeballs on it. But I don't think it's the kind of show that they're going to take seriously enough to win, especially up against something that we know they not only like but love. It's the second most nominated program overall this year, Fargo.
And we should mention that Fargo is coming back for season 2. They just announced that. But it's kind of doing the American Horror Story thing where it'll be a different cast next year. It's a different timeline. I think it's going to take place in the 70s. But the one difference is, from what I've heard, is that Keith Carradine's character from season 1 of Fargo will be the main character in season 2, but it will be a younger person playing him. So is that cheating? Is this really a miniseries if it's the same character's story over 2 seasons? Or are they just doing the Luther thing?
You sure you want to get into this now?
Yeah, we've talked about category fraud quite a bit today, so maybe we'll move on. But Okay, Daniel, Treme, how did you know Treme would be nominated?
Um, it was hard for me to tell if this was wishful thinking or not. I think Treme is one of my favorite shows on TV. I think, maybe not quite as good as The Wire, which is also by David Simon, but I think it hasn't gotten its due respect. And then it moved into these miniseries categories because its last season was only 5 episodes. And I was looking at my predictions that category, and I was trying to fill them up, and I'm realizing if HBO has a horse in this race, I need to have a good reason for not predicting it. Because even though Treme didn't get any love on the drama series side, here you have it's in the miniseries lineup. Is it really going to lose out to two shows on Stars? Stars hasn't really historically done that well in the miniseries categories. Is it really going to lose out to to that and to other shows on other networks that don't have the power that HBO has? So I thought, if it gets in nowhere else, I think it might get into Best Miniseries. And as we saw, it did also get into Best Writing, also Best Casting, and one other nomination possibly for Sound. I can't remember. So yeah, it sort of surprised me that I was right, but I think my logic was sound enough that it wasn't just wishful thinking. Because if I had a vote in this category, I'd probably give it to Treme even over Fargo, which I love.
Yeah,
Would,
I'm sorry. Can I just speak about Treme for a second? You take David Simon shows, and he has not done very well in the drama series category. The Wire, always snubbed. Homicide: Life on the Street, never nominated for Best Drama, even though it was nominated all 7 seasons for Best Drama by the Television Critics Association and won 3 times. But once you have David Simon doing a miniseries, then suddenly they love him because they have so much more space. The Corner won miniseries, writing and directing, and Generation Kill a few years ago got 11 nominations and won 3 of them.
and last year, Showtime cheated last year. Not cheated, but they bent the rules a little bit. They only let the Big C produce a certain number of episodes so that it could be a miniseries. And that seems to be what HBO did this year with Treme. They cut its episode order so that it could, because it's getting no luck in drama series. I don't think it got. Did they even get 1 nomination throughout its TV show run?
Yeah, it got a couple for its first season.
But then it just, the longer it went on, the less and less nominations it was getting. So they tried their luck here with making it a miniseries, and it worked out. So congratulations to HBO. That's awesome.
It could really win a couple of these too, like sound mixing. It's got a lot of music. Writing, it submitted the series finale, which I guess Daniel can tell us whether it's the best episode of the series or not. But the writing category, it really goes its own way. They were the only ones to nominate The Wire out of all the branches of the Academy, and they gave it to The Hour last year over Behind the Candelabra. So.
And then what about The White Queen?
Yeah, I definitely think David Simon is a threat there.
Yeah. The White Queen, it did get nominated here for Best Miniseries, but it missed out on Rebecca Ferguson for actress. Even when somebody like Kristen Wiig gets in, that's how much they did not like Rebecca Ferguson for mini-movie actress. But The White Queen, it did get a lot of Golden Globe nominations, if I remember correctly, and now here it is for Best Miniseries. Could this be maybe a surprise win here on Emmy night for Stars? Or is the competition just too tough this year?
It's not going to be a surprise win, but White Queen is interesting in that, it's kind of panned in Britain, but then once it came over to America, it was much better received. It got quite a few Golden Globe nominations. Like the BBC is not going to be continuing with it, but Starz actually wants to make another season. They can't call it the White Queen again because the BBC is not a part of it, so it's going to be called the White Princess.
Oh, wow.
And the show, it's up for costumes, hairstyling. Maybe it'll win some lower category like that because, it was one of the most expensive per episode shows on TV this past year. They just poured tons of money into it, and it didn't really work out, I guess.
And then there's the whole Bonnie and Clyde question. It didn't. It only got miniseries, right? It didn't get any other nominations.
Hairstyling, makeup, and sound editing.
Okay, good. So just a few technical ones, but I don't know if Bonnie and Clyde is going to be a big threat to unseat Fargo or Coven. So maybe we should talk about the two frontrunners a little bit more.
Something about Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Bonnie and Clyde, I think this year is just, this year's the Bible. It got tons of viewers. Actually, got 10 million viewers. So it just benefited from exposure. And we talked a bit in the other video about how, like, should they be separating movie and miniseries? Like, do we need more categories to represent them? And I think Bonnie and Clyde is kind of representative of, like, why we don't need more categories. Like, it only has 54 on Metacritic. Nobody is saying that it's good, like the film, and it's getting in just because a lot of people saw it.
Yeah, and the producers of Bonnie and Clyde, Craig Zadan and Neil Marin, they're big awards guys. They produced the Oscars, yeah. Let's pretend that True Detective was in this category. Would it be a battle between True Detective and Fargo or True Detective and Coven? Daniel?
It would definitely be a battle between True Detective and Fargo. I'm not sure which way that would go. We don't know how many nominations True Detective would have gotten if it were competing in movie miniseries categories as opposed to drama series categories. Fargo, as it is, got 18 nominations to True Detective 12. But I think it's pretty clear that if True Detective were competing in the miniseries category, it probably would have gotten a bump in that nominations tally, just because it would have had softer competition, especially below the line in those creative arts races. In some of those, even though some of those races are combined, half-hour movie, miniseries, drama. But I think it would have had a higher nominations counts, and I think it might have won. I'm not sure. I mean, again, you have HBO in that category.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were predicting True Detective to win before Gold Derby broke the announcement that it would be a drama series, and I remember after the switch happened, everyone just went to Fargo and never looked back really, because Coven, even though it did get writing and directing this year, which is awesome for that show, it may be a little too over the top and a little too campy to win the best prize. Over the top helps actors win because it gives them something to do, something to throw across the room, somebody to scream at. But when it comes to best production, I don't think that's something that they will go for. And there is this huge bias against, horror things, fantasy shows, sci-fi productions, and of course, Coven fits right into that bias. All right, so final thoughts on best miniseries. Is this a good lineup? I like it. I think there is kind of a battle for first place between Fargo and Coven, just if you look at the nominations. But if you look beyond that and you look at what had the most buzz this year, what got all of the acclaim, I think then it becomes a one-person battle, and that is Fargo. What about you, Riley?
Yeah, and I mean, if Coven won, I don't know if that would reflect too well. Yeah, Fargo was pretty good. I think True Detective would topple it if it were in it, just because it's on HBO. But yeah, Daniel brought up a good point about the nomination totals. I don't think that True Detective would have actually gotten that many more nominations because they were also hindered by, that they could only submit one episode for directing. Which reminds me, what about Fargo in writing, where normally when miniseries are nominated for writing, they submit the entire thing if it's by one writer. For reasons that we do not know, and we asked John Leverance about, and he didn't have an answer for, Fargo has only submitted and been nominated for its premiere in Best Writing. So I'm wondering if that's going to hurt it there, if people aren't able to judge the entire work.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not sure why that happened, if it was an oversight or if he maybe wanted to try his luck by only submitting one. We may never get the answer to that question. And Daniel, your final thoughts on this category?
It's a pretty solid race. I liked White Queen better than a lot of people did. I think Rebecca Ferguson's biggest crime is not being well known. I think if she had been a recognizable name, she would have gotten in easily. I was predicting that she would be snubbed once I looked at the names, and like you've got even people who didn't get nominated, like Whoopi Goldberg. Everyone who was nominated is a recognizable name, and she wasn't. So, was White Queen going to be strong enough to get her in on the merits of her performance, which I think is really one of the better performances of the last season, and it just didn't seem like it was. So I feel bad for that. I wish that it had gotten more nominations for acting. It would have a serious shot if it had gotten into writing or directing, but none there. But as it stands, it's great to see Treme nominated. That's my one takeaway finally from this category, is that Treme is nominated for Best Program. David Simon is nominated for Best Writing. Not all is right with the world, but it's a pretty good result.
Also, Story to Luther, we haven't mentioned that one. Marcus still here?
I think Marcus is frozen. I'm not sure he's still with us.
Well, I guess that's a good place to wrap up. Or I guess a better place would have been before he cut out. But.
Well, he can chop this off in YouTube. He can chop part of this off.
Yeah, let's just say anything now. Okay. I guess I'm gonna leave then. Okay, good talking to you.
Good talking to you too.